On a cold October night in 1998, the town of Willow Creek was rocked by a crime so heinous it shattered the idyllic tranquility that had defined the community for decades. The Anderson family, David, his wife Linda, and their teenage daughter Emily, were found brutally murdered in their home, each killed in a disturbingly methodical manner. The discovery was made by a neighbor who, after noticing that the usually immaculate house was dark and uncharacteristically silent for several days, decided to check in on the family. The crime scene was gruesome. David Anderson, a prominent attorney, was found in his study, slumped over his desk with a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. Linda, a well-known real estate agent, was found in the living room, her face covered with a plastic bag, suffocated to death. Emily, a bright and promising student, was discovered in her bedroom, her throat slit. Each murder was clean, precise, and horrifyingly intimate, suggesting that the killer had planned every detail meticulously. The local police, unaccustomed to dealing with such brutal crimes, were at a loss. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no DNA evidence, nothing that would suggest a typical break-in or a crime of passion. The only clue left behind was a cryptic note on the kitchen table that read, "You invited me in." The note was written in a shaky, almost childlike handwriting, but there were no prints, no traces of who might have left it. As the investigation began, the police delved into the Andersons' lives, searching for any indication of who might have wanted them dead. David Anderson had made a name for himself as a relentless lawyer, representing clients in high-stakes cases that often involved powerful and dangerous individuals. It wasn't long before detectives discovered that David had been receiving anonymous threats for months leading up to the murders. The threats were vague, warning him to watch his back, but David had dismissed them as the rantings of disgruntled clients. He never reported them, perhaps thinking that his legal acumen and status would protect him. However, these threats were just the tip of the iceberg. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets that suggested the Andersons' perfect life was anything but. David had been engaged in a long-running legal battle with a former client, Victor Caldwell, a wealthy businessman who had lost his fortune due to David's aggressive legal strategies. Caldwell was known for his ruthlessness, and it was rumored that he had ties to organized crime. Caldwell had openly vowed revenge, telling anyone who would listen that David had ruined him and that he would make him pay. However, on the night of the murders, Caldwell had an airtight alibi. He was attending a high-profile charity event, surrounded by dozens of witnesses. With Caldwell seemingly off the list, the police turned their attention to the Andersons' personal life. They soon discovered that Linda had been having an affair with one of David's colleagues, a man named Richard Callahan. Callahan was a successful lawyer in his own right, but he was also known for his volatile temper. He and Linda had been seeing each other for over a year, meeting in secret while David was at work. When questioned, Callahan admitted to the affair but denied any involvement in the murders. He claimed that he had ended the relationship weeks before the killings, after Linda refused to leave David for him. Emily's life was also scrutinized. A model student with a promising future, she had recently been accepted into an Ivy League university. But despite her outward success, Emily was struggling with deep-seated issues. She had confided in a close friend that she felt immense pressure from her parents to succeed, and that she often felt suffocated by their expectations. In the weeks before her death, Emily had begun to act out, skipping school and experimenting with drugs, behavior that was completely out of character for her. With multiple potential suspects but no concrete evidence, the case grew colder by the day. Then, the investigation took an unexpected turn. One of the Andersons' neighbors, Tom Jenkins, a reclusive man who lived alone, began to attract attention. Jenkins was a strange figure in the neighborhood, quiet, solitary, and often seen wandering the streets at odd hours. He had no known friends or family, and his interactions with others were limited to brief, awkward conversations. Despite his odd behavior, Jenkins had never been in trouble with the law, and there was no immediate reason to suspect him. However, several neighbors reported seeing him near the Andersons' home on the night of the murders. When questioned, Jenkins claimed he was just out for a walk, as he often did to help with his insomnia. His alibi seemed flimsy, but without any solid evidence, the police couldn't hold him. But Jenkins's strange behavior didn't end there. A few days after the murders, he was spotted near the crime scene, watching the police as they conducted their investigation. His presence was unsettling, and it didn't take long for the detectives to obtain a warrant to search his home. What they found in Jenkins' house was beyond anything they had imagined. Hidden in the basement was a small, dark room filled with surveillance equipment, cameras, monitors, recording devices, all focused on the Andersons' home. It appeared that Jenkins had been spying on the family for months, documenting their every move. In a corner of the room was a collection of notebooks filled with Jenkins' thoughts, written in a disturbing stream of consciousness. He wrote obsessively about Linda, describing her in terms that ranged from admiration to pure hatred. He referred to David as the obstacle and Emily as the princess in the tower. The most chilling discovery was a series of photographs taken inside the Andersons' home, images of the family going about their daily lives, unaware that they were being watched. The photos were taken from various angles, suggesting that Jenkins had somehow gained access to the house. But how? There were no signs of forced entry, and none of the Andersons' friends or family could recall ever seeing Jenkins inside the home. Jenkins was arrested and charged with the murders. The evidence against him was overwhelming, but during the trial he maintained his innocence, insisting that he was merely an observer. He claimed that he had become fascinated with the Andersons after moving to Willow Creek, seeing them as the embodiment of the perfect family he had always longed for. He admitted to watching them but denied ever entering their home or harming them. He insisted that someone else was responsible for the murders and that he was being framed. Despite Jenkins' claims, the jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case seemed closed, but the shadow it cast over Willow Creek would linger for years. Then, in 2004, a new piece of evidence emerged that shook the foundations of the case. A fingerprint was found on the cryptic note left at the crime scene. It didn't match Jenkins or anyone else involved in the investigation. The revelation led to a re-examination of the case, but by then it was too late for Jenkins, who had died under mysterious circumstances in prison just a year after his conviction. The discovery of the fingerprint reignited suspicions that someone else had been involved in the murders, possibly someone who knew the Andersons even better than Jenkins did. The case was reopened, but with so much time having passed and key evidence no longer available, the investigation stalled. To this day, the true identity of the killer remains a mystery. The Anderson murders continue to haunt the town of Willow Creek, a dark chapter in its history that refuses to close. The note left on the kitchen table, "You invited me in," remains a chilling reminder that the killer, whoever they are, may still be out there watching, waiting for their next opportunity.